Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our onX Hunt deep dive into waypoints tonight. We're going to give it just a couple of minutes to let everybody get signed in and get situated. While we're waiting, just a couple of housekeeping items. So your audio and video are turned off, so you don't have to worry if there's any background noise or anything like that. We can't see or hear you. If you do have questions, please use the Q&A box, which should be along the bottom of your screen. That's the best way for me to kind of keep track of questions and to answer them. At a lot of our masterclasses, if you've attended them before, we have somebody kind of in the background answering questions. I'm running solo today, so all questions will be answered at the end. I just don't have the brain power or the bandwidth to present and answer questions at the same time. So we'll have time for Q&A at the end there. This class is being recorded, so if you have to dip out early or you just want to go back and review the information, something like that, you'll get an email tomorrow with the recording in that email, so you can go back and review it or check out anything that you missed. We are doing a giveaway at the end of the class like we do on a lot of these, so stick around for the end of that. We'll post that link in the chat there as well. And I do apologize beforehand. I am a little bit under the weather. If my voice sounds a little hoarse or I clear my throat a few times, I was just at Pheasants Forever's Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic in South Dakota, and all the airport travel and shaking hands with people and talking all weekend has done a number on my voice. So I'll do my best here, and I'll try to be short and to the point so that I don't hurt my voice any more than it already is. So let's get into it. The agenda for the day, like I said, we're talking strictly about waypoints today. We're not going to really be talking about any other features of the onX app. We're not talking about any of the other markups. We're just diving deep on waypoints. So we're going to talk about the multiple different methods of placing waypoints. There's a bunch of different ways you can do that and different reasons why you might choose one or the other. We're going to talk about customizing your waypoints, how to do that, why you want to do that. We'll dive into the radius tool and wind on a waypoint and the wind calendar, and take a look at some of those kind of powerful tools that we've added to waypoints that a lot of people don't know about. We'll talk about a couple different methods for navigating to waypoints, and then at the end we'll get into our Q&A and our giveaway. So what I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna pull the map up on my tablet here. So give me one moment. It usually takes a little bit of time for this tablet to get on board here. So you can follow along if you have, your phone or a tablet handy. That's a really good thing to do, actually, so that you can kind of do the same thing I'm doing on the screen. That should be pulling up right now. Maybe. There we are. All right, so here I am within the app. And I mentioned earlier, there's a bunch of different ways to place a waypoint. Okay, so the first way we're gonna do it is we're gonna go into our tools menu. That's along the bottom of your screen. It says tools. I'm gonna tap on that. Then it pulls up all these different options here. The first one that I'm gonna tap on is in the center on the top row. It says mark my location. So as you can see on the screen, that is going to put an onX waypoint right on my location. Okay, so this is what I use when I'm out in the field. I use this when I park the truck and I want to be able to find it. I use this when I set up a tree stand. I'll hit mark my location. I use this when I see a rub, a wallow, anything where it's physically where I'm standing and I want to mark that for future reference. I hit mark my location. In a minute, we'll get into how to customize that, which is something I recommend doing. I always do that when I place a waypoint. I don't just leave it as a red X, but like I said, we'll take care of that here in a few minutes. The second way to mark a waypoint, let's just pretend I'm doing some e-scouting now. Let me find some national forest here or something. Let's say I want to check out this area of the map and I want to note it for when I'm out in the field. I go into tools. Now to the left of where it said mark my location, I'm going to hit add waypoint. Now that's just going to put a waypoint in the center of my map. That might not be exactly where I want it. I can still move it just by tapping on the screen. So all I'm doing is I'm just tapping on my map to be more precise. Let's say I want to mark this spot on the road right here. You know, the closer I zoom in, the more precise I can be. From there, I can change the color, I can change the icon. We'll get into reasons to do that in a little bit. For right now, I'm just gonna hit save. So that's the second way to mark a waypoint. The third way to mark a waypoint, and this is something I do fairly often. In fact, if I'm doing some e-scouting, 9 times out of 10, if I want to mark a spot, let's say I'm interested kind of in this finger ridge right in the center there. Let's say I want to check that out. Maybe I want to go hunting there or something. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to press my map screen and hold my finger down for a couple of seconds. So when I pressed the screen, after a couple seconds, the waypoint is dropped right where I put my finger. Okay, just like before, I can still move it around. I'm just tapping on the screen to get it placed exactly where I want, and then I can hit save. If you accidentally do this, we hear from customers fairly often that they're moving the map and they accidentally placed a waypoint there. No problem if you accidentally do this. Up in the top left corner, it says cancel. You can just tap that and it'll remove that waypoint. So that does happen. That's kind of the downside to that feature, that long press feature, but it's easy to dismiss. And then the fourth way to mark a waypoint, let's say I want to check out this area, or maybe this is a landowner that I want to ask permission. I'm going to tap on this parcel. And you see it's got a green dot right where I tapped. Down along the bottom of my screen, at the bottom of all that land ownership information, there's a bunch of buttons. It's one that says add to folder, one that says share, one that says driving directions, and one that says add waypoint. If I hit add waypoint, that's going to place one right where that green circle was. And from here, it's just like the previous 2 examples. I can still change the location and do all that, and then hit save. So you've got really kind of 4 different ways to mark a waypoint. When I'm out in the field, most of the time I'm using mark my location because I want to mark the spot where I'm physically at. Be that a tree stand that I'm in or a duck blind that I set up, be that the truck that I'm about to leave, or maybe I, heard a turkey gobble, or I guess it probably wouldn't be standing where the turkey gobbled, but maybe I saw some turkey scratching, or I saw a buck rub, or found a shed and I want to mark it, something like that. I'll use mark my location. For everything else, most of the time, I'm either doing the, just querying the map and then adding a waypoint from there, or I'm doing that long press. So no really, better or worse way to do it. Whatever works for you is the right way to do it. All right, so we've got some waypoints marked on our map. The next recommendation I have is to customize your waypoints. You see I marked this one with just the red X. That's what all of your waypoints default to. You can go and edit a waypoint at any time. First of all, you just tap on it like I just did. In the lower left-hand corner of this menu, there's a button that says edit. First thing I recommend doing, that's the wrong button. That's for a mouse I have for this. There we go. Name your waypoints. I can't tell you how many times I've marked a waypoint and then not named it, not written down any information. I come back to it 6 months later. Heck, it might be 6 days later. And I don't remember what I marked. Was this a pheasant I flushed? Was this a shed I found? Is this an area that I need to scout for later? No idea, right? So I'm going to just name this ask for turkey permission. I don't know if, this is a random spot. So if you're in Western Montana, I'm not saying this spot has turkeys. I don't know if they do. It's just the example in the class here. So I'm going to name it Ask for Turkey Permission. So I know that I need to, maybe drive by this person's house and see if they're there and ask them for permission or to look up their name or something. I might give it the gobbler icon. We have a whole bunch of different icons. I think we have close to 90 different waypoint icons you can choose from. We're always looking to add more. A bunch of people sent in requests. I saw one for beaver. I saw one for like airplane or airstrip. I saw one for grouse. So definitely let us know if there's some that you want to see. We're always looking to add a few more here. There was a few people that said, man, I don't use all of these icons. One thing you can do to help find them more quickly is you can search for an icon. So if I'm looking for turkey icons, I can tap in it would help if I spelled turkey correctly. I can type in that search bar there, and there's all of my turkey icons. I can search for ducks. Whatever way is fastest for you. Most of the time, I'm so used to just going through alphabetically, I kind of know where they are by now. I just scroll down to the ones I need. But let's make this one the gobbler icon. Let's say I saw a turkey strut in there. The next thing I recommend doing is color coding your waypoints. So you might decide, hey, all the spots I want to ask for permission, I'm going to make red. Or all the spots that I want to scout for XYZ species, I'm going to make red. You could, what I personally do is I color code my waypoints based on species. Pretty lucky here in Western Montana. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different animals we get to hunt, and I like to chase just about all of them. So I have, for example, my bear spots are blue. My elk spots on my personal account are brown. My turkey spots are this kind of bluish green turquoise color. Small game's yellow. Whatever makes sense to you. That's one way to do it by species. I think I'm in the minority at the office here because what a lot of people do is they will color code by year. So they'll use their icons to tell them what species this is. And they'll say, well, all my elk ones are going to be elk-centric icons. So I know that it's elk, whereas me personally, I do it by color. A lot of people will do it by year, and they'll say, all right, for 2024, all of my icons are going to be blue. 2023, they were all yellow. 2025, I'm going to use brown so that you can see year over year, especially if you're, like a whitetail guy, a turkey guy, and you're hunting especially if you're hunting like private property, you're hunting the same place year after year. I definitely see that. I think that might be the way to go so you can easily track changes over years. You can see, man, they're rubbing in this same area year after year. The turkeys are always roosting in this same area year after year. Things like that. Whatever makes sense to you, okay? Pick a color scheme and kind of stick with it. And once you do, when I see certain colors on a map, I just automatically am thinking of that species. So I see yellow, I'm thinking, those are like my upland bird spots. I see this bluish green color, those are my turkey spots. I just automatically am able to tell, even when the whole map is covered up with a whole bunch of other icons. All right, so we've picked an icon, we've picked a color. The next thing is to add photos. Now, this isn't something you're going to necessarily do for every waypoint. I do it for a very small number of my actual waypoints. But a couple things that I will add. If I see a deer scrape or a buck rub, I oftentimes will take a picture and add it to this waypoint. Same thing with elk wallows. Same thing with, sometimes it's water crossings. I'll take a picture of the crossing just so I can kind of get a sense of, if I have to cross it in the dark, where exactly the shallow spot is. I also do this for when I'm successful in the field. I'll take, your standard kind of old school grip and grin picture with a buck or with my dog with some grouse or something. And I'll put them in there just because it's kind of fun to go back and take a look at these afterwards and kind of remember. Same thing with taking notes. You can put notes in here and use it a bit like a journal if you want. I have some spots that I hunt year after year, and I will just put the date and what I saw. I have some spots that I kind of have a mail route where I go listen for turkeys in the spring, which is, we are about a month and a week away from opener here in Montana, so I'm getting pretty excited. So I might have my listening spots where I drive out and call and try to hear turkeys gobble, and I'll just make notes. And I'll just say, April 5th, 2024, heard one gobble. I might come back a few days later, April 9th, 2024, no gobbles. April 12th, heard 3 gobbles. Whatever, you can write as much or as little as you want. When I mentioned taking like a field photo with a deer, I'll sometimes make notes in there, said, buck came out 3:30 in the afternoon, shot him at 50 yards, whatever you want to remember there. So again, all of this customization, there's not really any right or wrong way to do it. I would say the only wrong way to do it is to do nothing. Because if you have a map full of red X's later on, it's not going to mean anything to you. It may seem a little tedious to do it in the field, but I promise you, even if you just change the name and the icon and go back in and add more information later, that's going to be valuable to you down the road. It's one of those things where the more you put into it, the more you get out of it for sure. All right, so I am going to save this waypoint here. Double check my notes here to make sure I covered everything. So let's move on to our radius tool. The radius tool is something we added a couple of years ago, kind of by customer request, and it's useful for a number of different uses. So let's just say I'm going to find a spot. And again, this is a spot I've never actually been, but let's pretend I'm going to deer hunt this spot. Oh, here, this looks like a decent, maybe they're along this waterway. I want to put a waypoint there. So let's pretend that this is a tree stand I set up. Okay, so I mark my waypoint. I'm going to select the tree stand icon, and let's just pretend, blue is my tree stand color or my deer color, whatever. I hit save. So I have this waypoint saved. I'm going to tap on it. I'm just going to pull this card up with my finger. Now you can see we have 2 different tools here, wind direction, which we'll get to in a minute, and the waypoint radius. So the radius lets you draw that circle around your waypoint at a set distance. So let's say this is an archery deer spot. I'm not shooting a deer with my bow, certainly not more than 50 yards. 50 yards is even pressing it, especially on like whitetails that are known to jump the string. So I'm going to apply that. Now you can see, all right, 50 yards, that's kind of the ground I can cover, that I can shoot to. So I've had people will put a bunch of different icons on specific trees. I've seen people do this and then draw that radius because they might have a certain landmark they want to be able to shoot to. Maybe they have a trail through the woods here, for example, and they said, I don't know exactly what tree I want to set up in, but I know I want to be able to shoot to that trail because that's a worn down path and I know deer move along it. So they'll set a bunch of waypoints and make sure that each one of those is within that radius. And then when they go out in the field, they have a few different trees that they know are within range. So instead of, like a lot of people do, you get to the tree, you might shoot a rangefinder. Oh, this is 65 yards, got to move closer. Oh, this is 55 yards, got to move closer. Can just kind of save you that legwork. Okay, so that's one use case. Another example would be in states where you have setback rules or safety zones. So in some states, you can't shoot within X distance of an occupied dwelling. So let me see if I can find one here. All right, we're just going to use this house as an example right here. I'm going to put a waypoint on it. I'm going to change the icon to house. I'm going to hit save. So again, I'm going to tap on it, go to waypoint radius. And in a lot of states, I'm not familiar with every state, but I know quite a few of them. It's usually, a lot of times it's like 400 yards, 450 yards, that quarter mile mark or so. So I'm just going to move this out we'll go to 450 and hit apply. So I know, that area, that 450 yard radius with it from that house is off limits. Okay, if I'm in one of those states that has rules like that. So that's another use for the radius, just making sure you're not violating any of those laws. It can sometimes be tough to tell, especially, a lot of times you don't have a direct line of sight through the trees to a house to shoot a rangefinder or something like that to get an accurate range from that area. So you can have this all planned out before you go. Another example I want to show here would be, so this is, I just made this up. I picked a random spot here, but pretend all of those X's are trailheads. They could all be trailheads around an area. And I know, or I figure that most people probably aren't going to get more than a mile from the trailhead. In your area, you might say, man, there's a lot of really, really tough hikers, really dedicated folks, and it might be 2 miles. It might be half mile, whatever works for you. I set all these at a mile, and I said, I want to be more than a mile from any trailhead to go hunt elk, for example. So I know that area within all of those radii is more than a mile from any trailhead. So I might use this range radius to help mark every single trailhead in an area just so I can get away from people. That's an example. I think I first saw that Cody Rich. If you're familiar with him, I first saw him do that. So credit to him. I didn't come up with it. I wish I did, but pretty neat trick there. If you're someone who, especially in the West, hunting elk, that's kind of one of the tactics is, man, just try to get away from people as much as you can. So that's the radius tool. You can always go in and change them. I can always go in, just tap on it and hit edit. I can also turn it off without removing it. So I just turned that one off there. If you just want to turn it off to be able to see the map a little more clearly, I hit the wrong button. There we go. And you can do that as well. You can delete it entirely or just turn it off temporarily. All right, moving on to wind on a waypoint. Let me go back. So here was my tree stand I set up earlier. I've got my radius on it. I'm going to tap on it again. I'm going to pull up my menu. Now I'm going to go to wind direction. I'm just tapping that plus sign. And I have 2 options for wind direction. I can have it show the current wind, which I'm going to do right now. I'm going to hit apply. And this tablet has problems, so it's showing offline right now. On yours, it should show the wind direction. There's nothing like technology when you're live on a class to let you down. It's like needing to run to the printer when you need to print something right away and it doesn't work. There we go. Took a little bit of time to get connected there. So this is showing me at this tree stand, it's a 2 mile an hour wind out of the northwest. I will do this to just show the current wind on a lot of my upland spots where I'm hunting with my dog, because I don't really care what the wind is doing. I'm going to hunt this field either way. It just might depend where I park the truck or where I start my dog so that we can start kind of working into the wind. On a tree stand where it's a static location, I absolutely care what the wind is doing. And that's going to determine whether I hunt a tree stand or not. For that, I'm going to go in and I'm going to set an optimal wind. So right now, what you can do is choose, all right, what's the best wind for this stand location? This example, let's say I'm thinking deer are going to kind of come from the north. Just throwing one out there. So I want to hunt it on the north winds. So that's what's going to be best for me. So I selected northwest, north, northeast. Any of those winds, I'm good hunting this stand. When I save it, it's telling me it's 2 miles an hour out of the northwest. That's a good wind. And if I just close out, you can see at the glance of an eye, it's highlighted green. So that way I can tell it's a good wind. If it was out of the west, it would be showing as yellow because it's kind of a marginal wind. It's maybe not perfect for the stand, but maybe I still decide to hunt it. If it was coming out of the south, that would be highlighted red. because it's a bad wind for this location. So waypoint, I don't set wind on a waypoint on all of my waypoints. I do it on tree stands. I do it on waterfowl hunting spots, duck blinds, and I do it on a lot of my upland spots so that I know. And for the upland spot, I usually will just do current wind versus optimal. Because like I said, I don't really care what the wind's doing. It's just going to dictate what direction I attack that cover from. What's really cool, once you add multiple waypoints with wind on a waypoint, is if I go into my tools, and on the bottom row, second from the left, it says wind calendar. So if I tap on that and give it a few moments to load up, what that is going to show is a calendar forecasted out for all of the waypoints that I have selected and added an optimal wind to. So if I go out to tomorrow, it's going to tell me at sunrise, what's the wind going to be doing at this waypoint, at midday, and at sunset. So if I was going to go out for an evening hunt tomorrow, let's say I have all these options, right? Well, I really only have like 3 good options. Everything else is yellow or red. So it really, if you have a whole bunch of tree stands and you kind of get that paralysis by analysis, this can help with that, where you can just take a look and say, all right, I got these 3 stands are the best options based on the wind. Now I just got to choose between 3 instead of 13. You can go out multiple days, and it'll even tell you, if it's the rut in November and you like doing all day sits, it might tell you, hey, this stand's going to be good until midday, but then you might want to think about getting down and moving to another stand at some point because the wind's liable to shift in the afternoon. It happens all the time, right? So the more waypoints that you put this on, the more data you're going to have. If you don't put any optimal wind, it won't show on the wind calendar. So if you just have the current wind, it doesn't show on this. So all of those like upland spots I talked about, mine won't show on this, but the ones that I do the optimal do show. All right. So we talked about radius, we talked about wind on a waypoint. Let's talk about getting to a waypoint. There are a couple different methods that we have built within the app to help you navigate to a waypoint. The first one I'm going to show you is kind of the oldest one. We've had it darn near since the beginning, is just our navigate to feature. So I'm going to get the map back closer to Missoula, closer to where I am. So that blue dot is me there. Let's say I wanted to get to this yellow turkey waypoint that's a little bit to the northeast of me. I'm going to tap on the waypoint. Along the bottom of my screen, I have all those different buttons. I have those different options. I'm going to tap go to waypoint. So what that does is it's going to draw a line as the crow flies to that waypoint. And in the top left corner of the map, it's going to tell you how far away you are. So as you walk, that's going to count down. So you can, tell how far away you are from a given location. I find myself using this like at the end of a long day hiking in the mountains. I'll do go to waypoint to the truck so I can tell how far away it is. And it is almost like a little bit of motivation to keep myself going, like, it's only 900 yards more. It's only 700 yards more. You can kind of see your progress as you go. I'm not the biggest hiker in the world, so it's nice to do that sometimes. It's also nice sometimes if you have to go around an obstacle. If there's a bunch of blowdown or you have to go around some water or you get cliffed out or something, just so you can kind of keep your bearings right and you can use that line to see yourself moving around and getting closer to that waypoint. So again, that is as the crow flies, and it does not take into account the elevation change. So it's not going to take into account, if you're going up a mountain at a pretty steep incline, it is just the flat distance that you're traveling there. So that's one way to navigate to a waypoint. The other way is something that's a little bit newer to us is, let's say I want to get to this waypoint here and I'm going to drive. What I do is I tap on it. Again, I pull up that same menu and then I'm going to tap driving directions. It's going to give you a choice. This is an iPad, so it's giving me either Apple Maps or Google Maps, whichever one of those navigation systems you use. So I might just hit Apple Maps. I don't know if it'll even work. I've never used Apple Maps. All right, so we're going to close out of this. Should have probably tested that beforehand. Oh, there we go. So now I've got my driving directions. Apple and Google do a fantastic job of turn-by-turn directions on the road, so we just bump you over to them. That's going to take you to that waypoint. Eventually, I think we'd like to have it all within the onX app, but like I said, they already do a pretty good job at getting you places on the pavement or on the roads. So we're just going to bump you to Apple or Google, and most of you are familiar with that. So for getting to a waypoint, that's accessible by car. That's kind of the way to do it. Or it will, it's not going to give you driving directions necessarily to this waypoint because you can't really drive there unless you go off-road, but it'll get you as close as the roads will take you. Then you might have to lace up the hiking boots. Last thing I want to cover before we get to the Q&A portion is deleting a waypoint. Had that question a few times. People are like, man, I've got a whole bunch of waypoints. I maybe didn't customize them like Jack said. I want to delete them. To delete a waypoint, all you have to do is tap on it. Again, you got that menu down below, hit the delete button, and it's gone. So that's the quickest and easiest way to do that. If you do accidentally delete a waypoint, if you're like, oh man, I didn't mean to delete that one, we can restore it for you. Our customer support team can go in, and they can't see where the waypoint is or anything like that. All they do is they pull up a program on our side and it'll show, waypoint deleted at such and such time. We'll ask you, hey, does it sound like that's the waypoint? Did you delete it on, March 2nd around 8 p.m.? Yep, that's it. They'll go in and restore it and it'll pop back up on your map the next time you open up the app. So if you do delete, let us know and we can help out with that. So I am going to stop screen recording here. Give me 1 second to get back to where I need to be. So before we get into the Q&A, we are giving away some onX Hunt hats. So they look like this one right here. You can go to this website right here. You can type it into your browser. I will also post that in the giveaway, post the giveaway link in the chat here. Just give me 1 second to get that over to you, and then we will get into our Q&A. All right, so giveaway links in the chat. It takes a couple seconds to fill that out. If you're watching this class after it was recorded, so if it's after, March 6th, it's not open for you. I'm sorry, it does close at midnight tonight. I'll send an email out to everybody that wins tomorrow morning, and we'll get your hats shipped out to you. Usually ships out within about a day or so. So we did have a couple folks ask questions at registration. I want to go through a couple of those. What is the level of GPS accuracy available with onX Maps and Waypoints? So great question. The accuracy available within onX Maps, as far as your location and waypoints go, is basically what civilians are allowed to have. So the military has super accurate GPS for when they're, doing guided munitions and things like that. GPS for civilian use is usually within, I think it's like 3 or 4 meters is what they kind of regulate it to. So we're going to be about as accurate as that, or that's our accuracy potential. Every device is a little bit different. So your phone's GPS chip may be a little bit less accurate than that. Some things that can affect it. I have on rare occasions heard of people when they're in like a really steep canyon with really steep walls, having trouble picking that up because it can't get the signal up to the satellites. Similar with really thick canopy, really thick tree cover. It's got to be pretty thick for it to have an impact on you. Maybe some places in like the Pacific Northwest, or maybe, down in the bayou in Louisiana or Florida, or some of those thicker kind of swamps, a lot of vegetation, that might have an impact. But one thing you can do to increase the accuracy of your GPS while you're marking waypoints is to turn on the tracker, actually. So when you turn on the tracker, that tells onX, or onX tells your device GPS, like we ping it more often. So that's one thing. We're not like constantly pinging your location because that does eat up battery. So we kind of limit, there's a time frame for how often that ping goes, for lack of a better term. But when you're using a tracker, since we need that line to be as accurate as possible, it updates that frequency so that it's going to be a touch more accurate for you there. Another thing I've noticed is sometimes I'll be walking, I'll get to a spot, I want to mark my location, I pull my phone out and I can see my dot, kind of moving around a little bit. Usually if you just give it a few seconds, it'll start to hone in and it'll start to find you a little bit better. It kind of figures out that signal and gets a little more accurate there. So to make a long answer short, level of accuracy, you're generally going to be about 10 feet or so, because that's about as accurate as civilian GPSs can be. Here's a question: how do I share a waypoint? Great question. I'm going to pull up my map again. Give me one moment here. I'll show you how to share from a mobile device. Get back into onX. So if I have a waypoint I want to share with somebody, we'll pick this one right here. I tap on my waypoint. It pulls up that menu again. Down along the bottom of my screen, there's a button that says share. When you share a waypoint, it is view only by the recipient. So it's kind of like if you're familiar with sending like Google Docs to people. It's read only is what it is. We have had requests for, hey man, I got a whole hunting party and we'd all like to be able to edit these. Is there a way to set the permission? I think that's something we'll be able to do eventually, where you can give people permission to edit them. But right now, as it stands, when you share a waypoint, it's yours. You alone can change it. So I'm going to hit share item. Then, since this is a tablet, it doesn't have text message capabilities. On your phone, you'll have the option to send it as a text message. That's the way most people send them. You could email it. You can send it via Facebook. You can just copy the link and paste it into whatever messaging program you want. Like I said, most people will text them to a buddy. They'll pull it up on their phone. They have to accept the share. It'll open up onX and place the waypoint on their map. You can also share a waypoint with somebody that doesn't have onX. So classic use case for this is you're going out hunting alone. You got a significant other back home, or maybe a parent or roommate or whoever, and you just want them to know where you're going to be. I'll do this quite often. I'll mark my truck, and I will, if I have service, I'll send a text message, say, hey, this is where I parked. I expect to be back by 8 o'clock. If you don't hear from me by 9, maybe start thinking about sending a search party or calling somebody, something like that. Super useful to send a waypoint if you need help dragging a buck out or packing an elk out, something like that. If you're coordinating with a bunch of guys for a morning hunt, say, hey, meet here. We're all going to park at this parking spot. Again, just like customization, there's all kinds of different use cases for sharing a waypoint. Let's see what else. Few questions on organizing waypoints. So I'm going to take this as an opportunity to plug a future class. We are going to do an onX deep dive all on markup organization, content organization. Some people did mention folders. I'm going to close out of this share here. You can start looking at organizing your waypoints into folders. Like I said, we don't have the time tonight to go into this in too much depth, but I could add this waypoint to a folder Let's say this is a mule deer folder, and I've just added it there. So folders are a way to organize waypoints. Again, I do mine by species a lot of times or by hunt. If I'm doing a specific trip, let's say one of these years I draw my Arizona elk tag, I'm gonna have an Arizona elk folder where I put all my stuff so that it's all right there. And then once you have folders made, you can turn folders on and off. So that's why I do it by species. I put all of my turkey waypoints into a turkey folder, all my elk waypoints, so on and so forth. So right now it's March in Montana. I'm getting ready to hunt turkeys and bears coming up in April and May and into June if I have to for bears. So those are the waypoints that I have turned on right now. I've turned off or hidden my deer folder, my elk folder, my waterfowl folder, my upland bird folder. So I don't need those until this fall. So like I said, we will have a future masterclass on this. We don't have it scheduled out just yet. We're getting some other classes on the board, but we'll talk about folders and properties at that class. Let's see some other questions. So a lot of questions in here. We got 67 of them. Hopefully I answered some of them already. And I am going to prioritize questions based, around waypoints, because that's what this class is. So there's some about, updating landowners, things like that. It's just a bit beyond the scope of this class. So let's see. So we talked about sharing. Rudy asks, are there plans to modify the red-green colors on the wind calendar for those of us that are red-green colorblind? That's a great point, Rudy. On a lot of devices, you can. I know on Apple devices, there are certain colorblind modes you can choose that will change the entire screen for all of your apps. I think Android has a similar program. That might be something to look into. I'm not colorblind myself. I don't know exactly how well that works. I've heard mixed results. Some people say it works great for them. Some people it's not. But that's some feedback that I will bring back. That's definitely something we want to address, to make it easier for folks with red-green color blindness. Question is, can you share a waypoint if you do not have service? Yes and no. So the most common way to share is, send in a text message that requires cell phone service. We are working on, I think it's kind of slowly rolling out right now, a way to do an airdrop from iOS device to iOS device. Android has a similar version. I should know what it's called. I'm not an Android user myself. So there will be a way for, let's say I have an iPhone, my hunting partner has an iPhone, where I could send them a waypoint. I could airdrop it to them. You do have to be in pretty close proximity because that's really sharing like through Bluetooth. So it has to be able to make that connection. It's not going to work if they're miles and miles away. But that option is coming. Let's see. Is there a way to touch a property and save the highlighted boundary? There is. This is a little bit off topic, but it's close enough. So let's say I wanted to save this property on the map here. I can touch on it. I can hit add to, actually, let me back up. I'm going to first add a waypoint there. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to add that to a folder. This will test. And now my tablet is not working like it should. Again, technology. I apologize. There is a way to do that, but this tablet is running a bit of a different version of the app. It's not the version you folks all have since we do some testing, so it's not working as it should right now. I will get back to you on that, Tim. We'll talk about that in that content organization class as well. Let's see. Are all the waypoints available in premium? Yes, they are. So you have access to all the different waypoint icons, colors, all that stuff. Doesn't matter if you're premium or elite. John asked to repost the giveaway link. One moment, I will do that. So the giveaway link is there again, John, and anyone else who missed it. Ron asked, can you back up onX data by state and clear your phone? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, Ron. I'm wondering if maybe you're talking about like if you're getting a new phone or if you have to do like a hard reset of your phone. So all of your onX waypoints, your data is backed up basically on a server. That's why you're able to see it on multiple different devices. Like you can see it on your computer and on your phone. So if you had to get a new phone or you had to do a hard reset of your phone, your data is safe. It's not deleted. All you have to do is log in. Once you get a new phone, for example, log in with the same email and password you used to set up your account, and all of your data is going to be there. Dave asked, I just built a bunch of waypoints for an upcoming hunt on my PC. I don't see them when I open the app on my phone, only a few of them. Any thoughts? First thing I would do is check to see if you have any filters turned on. So you can have in my content, you can filter waypoints. So you might have this button selected that says only list content currently on the map. That could be an issue. You could also have any one of these filters turned on where I can filter by a certain color and only those colors are showing, or only these certain waypoint icons are showing. I would clear all the filters and double check that. Beyond that, if they're still not showing there, we'll double check and see if they're shown in this content menu, because you can also hide a waypoint. This one will let me. This one's not gonna let me. But you can hide waypoints. You can hide them by folder. Maybe that's what's going on. If you're still not seeing them, email us. help@onxmaps.com is our customer support email. They'll be willing to help you, and they'll take care of that for you. Let's try a couple more here. How do you move a waypoint, i.e. you fat fingered the location and want to fine tune it? So to do that, let's use this waypoint on my screen. I tap on it, I hit edit, and from there, I just tap on the map where I want it to be. To get as precise as possible, zoom in. Now I can put it on that tree, right? So that's how you do that. You just tap on it, hit edit, and then tap on the map where you want it to be. Let's see, we'll do a few more here. Michael asks, can we view historical wind data for a location? Not a feature we have in the app right now, but maybe that's something we could add in the future. I'll definitely pass that along. Good suggestion, Michael. Keith asked, when you drop a waypoint or spot, is it saved until you can go back and give it a name to identify it? Or does this have to all be done in the field before moving to the next spot? Great question, Keith. You can go back and edit a waypoint at any time. I started using onX in 2017 before I worked here. I can still go back and edit those waypoints. It doesn't have to be done right there. I do recommend doing that when you can, because me personally, I'm liable to forget exactly what I wanted to mark there. Now, if it's a situation where, I'm trying to get to a spot by a certain time, maybe I hear an elk bugle and I'm trying to move in, but while I'm moving in, I find a really good trail or I find a wallow I want to remember, then I'm just going to hit, yep, mark my location, and I'm going to keep moving in on that elk or that goblin turkey and then go back later and change it. If you make a habit of that, I know myself personally, if I mark 5 waypoints and they're all just red X's, I'm liable to forget at least some of those. So best practice is to try to put as much information as you can in the moment while it's fresh in your brain, but you certainly don't have to. You might have a better memory than me, and you're going to remember to do all that later on. So whatever works for you. There's no time limit on being able to edit. Randy asks, are you able to automatically share with the group versus having to always go and select share? So you do have to manually share the waypoint. You can text that waypoint like to a group. If you have all of your hunting buddies in like a group chat, you can just send that waypoint and they'll all get it. You don't have to do it one by one, but there isn't a way to like have the app automatically send something out when you mark a waypoint. Maybe that's something we could do in the future, especially, if you're setting up a hunting camp and you're the one who's setting up tree stands or something. I could see the use for that. Let's see, we'll do, what time are we at here? Almost at an hour. We'll do a couple more. If you share a waypoint to a non-app user, do they need to download the app or does it appear in their Apple Maps? Good question, Ralph. When they receive the shared waypoint, they will be if they don't have onX downloaded on their phone or on their tablet, they will be taken to the App Store to download it. So the waypoint won't show up in another mapping app. It is kind of onX specific. If they don't have onX, it'll ask them to download and set up an account. All that's free. They don't have to pay anything, and then they'll be able to receive that waypoint. Is there a way to share multiple waypoints at one time? Good question. And this was something I wanted to demo, so thank you for reminding me. You can select multiple waypoints at one time, whether it's because you want to delete them, whether it's because you want to share them, or whether it's because you want to add them to a folder. So what you can do is, let me go in here. I'm gonna go into, so I went into my content, I went into waypoints, I'm gonna hit select. So that's gonna open up this menu on my screen. It says select content. Now I'm just gonna tap on waypoints. And you can see as I tap on them, they're highlighted in white. So now I have all those selected. From there, I can do anything on the bottom of my map that's shown there. I can hide all of those if I want. I can delete all of them if I want. I can add them all to a folder, or I can share all of them at once. So that's super nice. I've used this example before. If you're setting up tree stands for a hunting camp, you're setting up duck blinds, whatever, you can, you're out, it's a nice October afternoon, you set up all your tree stands, and you're gonna send them all to the hunting crew because opener's in a couple weeks. Go select the waypoints that you want, go select all those tree stands, hit share, send them to all them, and then maybe give them a little bit of ribbing because they didn't help you set up tree stands and they were watching college football or something. So that's how you can kind of do a mass edit or mass deletion or mass share or mass add to folder all at once. And that again is in the My Content menu. I'll demo that again. I'm going to cancel. So I went into My Content along the bottom. I can either select all content or waypoints, hit select, and that's how I get into that edit mode. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing here. I do want to mention we do have more masterclasses coming up. I'm gonna post the link in the chat. If you want to take a look at the upcoming classes, we have a couple more application season classes with the folks at Hunt and Fool coming up this year. We also just added 3 turkey specific classes. Those turkey classes are special because we're giving away over $3,000 worth of turkey hunting gear in those classes, in each of those, so $9,000 total. for the course. Those are listed there. Those are members only, so you do have to have a membership to attend those. But we're giving away hunting blinds, calls, camouflage, from Mossy Oak. I believe we're giving away shotguns from Weatherbeat. We're giving away chokes, all kinds of stuff. So check those out as well. And again, if you have any questions, you can always email us, help@onxmaps.com. You can also tune into future masterclasses. I apologize again. I wasn't able to get to all of the questions we got tonight. We just kind of ran out of time here. But I want to thank everyone again for joining us, and we hope to see you on the next class. Have a good night, everybody.